If I could go back and give myself one piece of advice when I started learning French, it would be this. Focus on listening more than anything else. Not grammar, not vocabulary lists, not apps, listening. I know that might sound strange. When most people start learning a language, they focus on memorizing words, conjugating verbs, building sentences, speaking. And yes, to be fair, those things matter. But here's what I've learned after years of studying French, teaching hundreds of students, and actually becoming fluent. Listening is a skill that unlocks everything else. When your listening is strong, your speaking improves, your vocabulary grows, your grammar starts to feel natural, and everything just clicks. When your listening is weak, you struggle, you freeze in conversations, you feel lost, and you wonder why you're not progressing. Si tu découvres ma chaîne pour la première fois, salut, je suis Sumulua et j'ai appris le français à l'âge adulte et grâce à cette langue, j'ai pu m'installer au Canada. And today, I'm going to tell you why listening changed everything for me and why I believe it's the most important skill you can develop. Let me start with something I've been observing in my own home. I have a daughter, and watching her learn a language has been one of the most fascinating things. She didn't come out of my womb speaking, obviously no child does, but from the moment she was born, she was listening. I made a decision early on. I wanted her to know Yoruba and French, not just English. Because of where we live in Canada, she's surrounded by English everywhere. But I wanted her to have more. So I started speaking Yoruba to her. I started speaking French to her. I put on cartoons in Yoruba and I put on cartoons in French. And you know what? She's picking it up. She understands when I say things in Yoruba. She repeats words back to me. She watches those Yoruba cartoons and she laughs. Like, she actually gets the jokes or she gets what they're doing. She's understanding. Not because I sat her down with flashcards, not because I drilled her on grammar, but because she's listening since day one. This is how language works. Children listen for years before they speak. They absorb sounds. They hear patterns. They take in thousands and thousands of hours of inputs. And then only after all that listening, they start to speak. The listening comes first. The speaking comes from the listening. But when we adults learn a second language, we flip this completely. We try to speak before we've listened enough. We try to produce before we've absorbed. And then we wonder why it feels so hard. Am I talking to you? And so if you want to learn French, you need to think of yourself like a child again. You need to listen a lot before you worry about perfecting your speaking or your grammar. Listening is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. Let me tell you how listening changed my own journey. When I started learning French seriously in 2018, I made a decision. I was going to surround myself with French audio as much as possible. Now, as you know, I didn't live in a French-speaking country. I lived in Nigeria. There was no French around me naturally. No one in my house spoke French. Nobody was even speaking French at my job. And so I had to create my own immersion. I started listening to French audio whilst getting ready in the morning. I'll probably put something on whilst I was doing my makeup, whilst I was getting dressed. I listened while cooking, whilst at the market, while cleaning, while commuting. At first, and I need to be very honest with you, I understood almost nothing. Maybe 1%. Okay, no, maybe like 5%. It was really frustrating, and sometimes I wondered, what's the point? Why am I putting myself through this? I don't even know what they're saying. But I kept going, and something interesting started to happen. After a few weeks, I started catching words here and there. A word I recognized, a phrase that sounded familiar. And a little while after, I was understanding sentences. I mean, I could follow the general topic. I knew what they were talking about, even if I missed details. And after about maybe 3 months, almost 6 months, I could follow conversations. I could listen to a podcast and actually understand what was happening. My ears had transformed. They had learned to hear French. And here's what surprised me the most. My speaking improved too. I wasn't actively practicing speaking during all that listening time, but I didn't know I was absorbing patterns, sentence structures, the rhythm and melody of the French language. So when I opened my mouth to speak, things came out more naturally because I had heard them so many times. A quick segue, like imagine if you hear someone's name for the first time. I know when I talk to people say, what's your name? Like, my name is Sumolua. You first hear could you say it again? My name is Sumolua. And then I hear Simi. I'm like, no, my name is Sumolua. And they say, oh, maybe Sumolua or Sumo. I'm like, yeah. So they get it, because they've heard me say it again and again. Do you get what I mean? And so when I took my TEF exam in 2019, my listening score was quite strong. And even in my DELF A2 exam. And I believe it's because I had spent so much time training my ears, not just studying from books. Listening was the foundation. Everything else was built on top of it. Now, let me break down exactly how listening improves every other skill. Number one, listening improves your speaking. You cannot say what you've never heard. Think about it. I mean, when you listen a lot, you absorb how French actually sounds. The rhythm, the intonation, the way words connect together, the way sentences flow. And when you speak, those patterns come out. You start to sound more natural. Not because you studied pronunciation rules in a textbook, but because you've heard natural French thousands of times. I see this with my students all the time. The ones who listen a lot speak more naturally, even if their grammar is imperfect. They have the rhythm, the flow, like the music of the language. Number two, listening builds your vocabulary. Yes, you can memorize vocabulary from lists. And I always say this, words learned in context, heard in real sentences, in real conversations, they stick better. When you hear a word used naturally, you understand not just what it means, but how it's used, the context, the situations, the feeling of the word. This is way deeper than flashcard knowledge. This is real vocabulary that you can actually use. Number three, listening improves your grammar. When you hear correct grammar over and over, it starts to feel right. You just develop intuition. Native speakers don't think about grammar rules when they talk. They just know what sounds right. And they know because they've heard it so many times. When you listen a lot, you start to develop this feeling too. You can sense when something is wrong, even if you can't explain the rule. This is powerful. This is real fluency. And I'm going to give you an example. I remember one time a student asking me, Sumo, this particular word here, le père, why don't we pronounce the E at the end of it? Now, because I've already learned the language, I just know that it's pronounced le père. And so I told him, okay, hold on, look at this word here. House, mice, mouse. Why don't you pronounce the E at the end of it? And he laughed. I said, exactly. That's just it. Like, we're native English speakers. So if somebody was asked, Sumo, why is the E not pronounced? I don't know. It's just not pronounced because that's how it is in English. It's house, it's mice, it's mouse. We don't pronounce the E. So the same thing with le père. It's not going to be le père or le péri. I don't even know, but that's just what it is. It's how the language is. Like, so this is fluency because you already know the language. So when I learned French, I didn't have to learn why is the E not pronounced. It's just how the language is. Number four, listening builds your confidence. So much of the fear around speaking comes from not understanding the other person. You're afraid to have a conversation because what if they say something and you don't understand? What if you can't respond? But when your listen is strong, you can follow what people say. You can respond appropriately. You feel less scared. Listening gives you the confidence to actually use your French in real life. Now, here's something really important that I tell all my students. Listen to content you actually enjoy. I know this sounds obvious, but so many people make the mistake of forcing themselves just because someone told them it's good for learning. They listen to French news, even though they find the news boring. They listen to podcasts about topics they don't care about. And then they wonder why they can't stay consistent. If you don't enjoy it, you won't stick with it. And if you don't stick with it, you won't improve. So here's my advice. If you're just starting out, or perhaps you're moving to the intermediate level, maybe B1, experiment. Try different types of content. You don't know what you like until you start listening. Listen to different podcasts, watch different YouTube channels, try music, try audiobooks, try shows. See what captures your attention. See what makes you want to keep listening. When I was learning, I tried so many different things. Some I loved, some I didn't, and that's okay. The point is to find what works for you. One podcast I always talk about is Heure Miroir. Someone recommended it to me, and at first I wasn't sure about it, but I tried it and I ended up loving it. Now I listen to it almost every morning. That podcast wasn't something I discovered from a list. I stumbled upon it because I was searching, trying different things, staying curious. You need to do the same. The internet has made this so easy. You can find anything. Literally type into Google or YouTube, French podcasts for A1 beginners, French podcasts for intermediate learners, French podcasts about fashion, French podcasts about sports, French podcasts about music, French podcasts about marketing. Whatever your interest is, type it. Something will come up. Please don't wait for someone to hand you a list. Search, explore, just find what you enjoy. Now, yes, if you're preparing for a particular French exam, you need to listen to specific content for that exam. That's different. But even then, don't only listen to exam content. Mix it up. Listen to things you enjoy too. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you consistent. The key is to make listening something you look forward to, not something you dread. Now, let me show you something. Let's actually practice together. There's a difference between passive listening and active listening. Passive listening is when French is playing in the background while you do other things. You're not really focused. I don't want to say you're not really focused. If the radio is on, you're cooking or whatever, you're catching bits on what they're saying, but it's not 100% attention is there, okay? So some might even say they just put on music in the background for background noise. That's passive listening. Now, active listening is when you actually sit down, focus, and really try to understand every single word. You pause when you miss something, you rewind, you engage. Both have value. Passive listening builds familiarity, but active listening listen is what really sharpens your comprehension. Let me show you what active listening looks like. If you've been watching my channel for a while, I always show this book, and honestly, probably they should sponsor me because I'm always talking about this book. It's called La Dictée, and it's just designed for dictation practice. That is listening and writing what you hear, okay? So I'm going to play a short audio clip from this book. Your job right now is to stop everything you're doing and really listen. Try to catch as much as you can. See how much you understand. Vous êtes prêts? Let's go.
Piste numéro 2. Léa chez le coiffeur. Point virgule. Léa est chez le coiffeur. Point virgule. Ses cheveux sont très longs et elle veut les couper. Point. Ses cheveux sont très longs et elle veut les couper. Point. Son amie Louise lui conseille un carré dégradé, virgule. Son amie Louise lui conseille un carré dégradé, virgule. Mais Loïc soutient que c'est une mauvaise idée. Mais Loïc soutient que c'est une mauvaise idée.
Okay, how did you do? Did you catch everything or did you miss some words? If you missed words, that's okay. That's normal. That's why we practice. This kind of active listening, like where you actually focus and try to catch every word, this is what trains your ears. This is what improves your comprehension. So please try to do this regularly. Even just 10 minutes a day of focused active listening can make a huge difference over time. See, the clip I was playing for you, the clip is actually a 6 minutes 47-second audio of me. So if you were to listen to this over and over again, it's not even, if you listen to it twice, it's like 15 minutes. Imagine what you can accomplish. So here's my message to you. If you've been focusing on grammar drills, vocabulary lists, and apps, but you haven't been listening consistently, it's time to change that. Make listening a priority, not something you do when you have time. Something you try to do, please, at least every single day. Listen while you get ready in the morning, listen while you cook, listen while you commute, listen while you work out, listen while you walk to the supermarket, listen while you're waiting at the doctor's office for your appointment, listen while you're making your hair. Just try and listen. Find content you actually enjoy. Like just search online, try different things, be curious, and practice active listening too. Don't just let French wash over you. Engage with it, like focus, try to catch every word. Train your ears, build that foundation. I watched my own daughter start understanding Yoruba and French, not from textbooks, but from listening, from hearing the language around her every day. If it works for a child, it can work for you too. I went from understanding almost nothing in French to passing my TEF exam and moving to Canada. Listening was a huge part of that journey. If it worked for me, it can work for you. Now, if you would love a clear roadmap for your French journey, including podcast recommendations for different levels, I've created something just for you. My French Fluency Guide gives you over 90 topics organized by level from A1 all the way to C1, which is beginners to advanced level. It tells you exactly what to focus on at each stage. And yes, it includes podcast recommendations for beginners, intermediate, and advanced learners, so you don't have to search endlessly. And it's not just me saying this. Take a look at what others who've used the guide or are currently using the guide are saying. I've linked the French Fluency Guide in the description box below. It's the first line you see. Go grab it. And please drop a comment and tell me, how much time do you spend on listening right now? Be honest, I'd love to know where you're at. And if this video helped you, please hit the like button. It really helps more learners find this type of content. And subscribe if this helped you as well. I post new videos every week to help in your French journey. Until I see you in my next video, bonne journée.